Story 1. The Legend of Old Bob. Ever heard of someone you thought was a monster, only to realize they were the hero all along? That's exactly what happened to me in the dusty little town of Medicine Bow, Wyoming. I grew up thinking Bob Barnes was the devil himself, killer who walked free, a shadow that haunted the north side of town for 17 years. I believed that story, and one night, fueled by rage and paint thinner, I almost became the very thing I thought he was. The town that time forgot. Medicine Bow sits in south-central Wyoming, like a period at the end of a sentence nobody finished writing. Population 284. Most people only know it as the resting place of Dippy, the dinosaur, that massive Diplodocus skeleton they dug up here in 1899. Now gathering dust in Pittsburgh. Outside of that claim to fame, the town was nothing but gravel roads, cottonwood trees, rusted trailers, and silence so thick you could choke on it. My mom raised me alone in a single wide on the south end. She worked double shifts at the truck stop off I-80, came home smelling like fryer grease and Marlboro Lights, and never complained. She wasn't strict. She let me roam, let me make mistakes, let me figure things out. But there was one rule she hammered into me from the time I could walk. Stay away from Bob Barnes, the boogeyman of Medicine Bow. Bob lived in a trailer on the north side, past the abandoned gas station and the creek that only ran in spring. His place was a rust-colored box, surrounded by junk car parts, broken furniture, stacks of wood pallets. At night, he'd scavenge through trash bins behind the grocery store and the diner, collecting cans and bottles for redemption money. The rumors about him were always whispered, never shouted. People said he'd killed someone and gotten away with it. They said he'd gone to Vietnam and come back wrong. They said if you went near the north side after dark, you'd hear him hunting rifle shots echoing through the trees and you didn't want to be mistaken for a squirrel or a rabbit. My mom never explained it fully. She'd just get this look in her eyes, distant and pained, and say he killed my friend. That's all you need to know, and that was enough. I filled in the rest with my imagination. Bob as a cold-blooded murderer, stalking the woods, dangerous and unpredictable. When I was 14, I started noticing something strange. Not everyone saw Bob the way my mom did. I was hanging out at my buddy Tyler's house when his little sister came running in, breathless. I saw the boogeyman. He was digging through the trash at school. Tyler's mom sighed from the kitchen. "That's not a boogeyman, honey. That's just Bob Barnes. But Dad says he's dangerous. Your dad doesn't know what he's talking about." She wiped her hands on a dish towel and looked at us with something like sadness. "That poor man, all he wants is to be left alone." The way she said it stuck with me. Poor man, not monster, not killer. Poor man. I asked Tyler about it later. He shrugged. "Mom feels bad for everybody. Dad says Bob shot someone back in the day, and the cops let him go 'cause he's a vet. My mom says the same thing. Then it's probably true, right?" But I couldn't shake Mrs. Henderson's tone. It didn't sound like she was talking about a murderer. It sounded like she was talking about someone the world had wronged. By 17, whatever ambiguity I'd felt had calcified into pure hatred. It was late summer, humid and thick. My mom came home from her shift at 2 a.m., drunker than I'd ever seen her. She collapsed on the couch, and I heard her crying. I sat down next to her, and for the first time, she told me the whole story. Her name was Rachel, Mom said, staring at nothing. We were best friends since middle school. She was gonna get out of this place, go to college, be somebody. She told me about the night at East Allen Lake, a party spot, where high schoolers went to drink and raise hell. It was 1987, late August, just before school started. Rachel had gone there with some friends, and around midnight, she'd seen something that terrified her. She saw Bob Barnes, Mom said, her voice cracking. He was chasing this teenage boy through the woods, some kid from Laramie, who was visiting for the summer. She survived. Bullet went through her shoulder, but she was never the same. Started using pills first, then harder stuff. Died 2 years later from an overdose. Mom looked at me with red, swollen eyes. Bob Barnes killed her. Maybe not with that bullet, but he killed her. And he never spent a single day in jail. I felt something ignite in my chest, a white-hot rage I'd never experienced before. Why didn't they arrest him? They did, but he claimed self-defense. Said the kid had a weapon. Said he thought Rachel was with him. No witnesses, no weapon ever found. They let him go. That night, I stopped seeing Bob Barnes as a sad, broken veteran. I saw him as a murderer who'd stolen my mom's best friend and walked free. I didn't tell anyone. Not Tyler, not my girlfriend, nobody. For 2 weeks, I planned it. I stole a 2-gallon jug of paint thinner from the shop class storage room at school. I studied Bob's routine. He usually went to bed around 11 p.m. after his nightly scavenging run. I mapped the walk from my place to his, an hour-long loop around East Allen Lake, through the woods, emerging just behind his trailer. The plan was simple. Wait until he was asleep. Pour the paint thinner around the base of his trailer. Light it. Run. I told myself I was doing it for Rachel, for my mom, for justice. Looking back now, I know what I really was. A 17-year-old kid playing vigilante because it felt like power. I left my house at 10 p.m. on a Friday. My mom was working a night shift. I wore dark clothes, a backpack with the paint thinner inside, and a Zippo lighter in my pocket. The walk around the lake felt endless. Every snapping twig sounded like a gunshot. Every shadow looked like Bob. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the jug twice. By the time I reached the north side, it was past 11:30. Bob's trailer was dark, except for a single light in the back window. I crouched behind a pile of wood pallets, waiting for the light to go out. 15 minutes passed, then 30. Finally, the light clicked off. I crept forward, unscrewing the cap on the paint thinner. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought it might burst. I reached the base of the trailer, tilted the jug. Click. The sound of a gun cocking is something you never forget. What you got there, boy? I froze. The jug slipped from my hands and hit the dirt with a dull thud. Bob Barnes stepped out from behind the trailer, shotgun leveled at my chest. He was smaller than I'd imagined, maybe 5'9", thin as a rail, with a long gray beard and eyes that looked 100 years old. He was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans held up with a rope belt. "I know you," he said quietly. "You're Linda's kid." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. "You planning to burn me alive, son. You killed her friend," I finally choked out. "You shot Rachel." Bob's face didn't change. He lowered the shotgun slightly. "That what she told you? It's the truth." "No," Bob said, "it ain't." He gestured toward the trailer. "You came here to kill me. Least you can do is hear my side before you try again." Inside, Bob's trailer was nothing like I expected. It was clean, organized. A small wooden table with 2 chairs, a military footlocker in the corner, a hot plate, and a mini fridge. Photos on the wall, mostly black and white. Soldiers in uniform. Bob poured 2 cups of instant coffee and sat across from me. The shotgun leaned against the wall, just out of my reach. "I'm gonna tell you what happened that night," he said. "And then you're gonna decide what kind of man you want to be." He told me about August 1987. He'd been camping near East Allen Lake, trying to get away from town for a few days. Around midnight, he heard shouting, a girl's voice, scared and slurred. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the sound. There was a boy, Bob said, maybe 19, 20, big kid. He was dragging a little girl, maybe 6, 7 years old, through the woods. She was crying, trying to get away. The boy was drunk, maybe high. He kept telling her to shut up. Bob's hands tightened around his coffee cup. I saw what he was planning to do. I've seen evil before, son. I know what it looks like. So you shot Rachel. I didn't shoot Rachel. Bob's voice was firm. I shot at the boy, warned him to let the girl go. He dropped her and pulled a knife flick blade, about 4 inches. That's when your mom's friend came running out of the trees, screaming at me. He paused. She got between us. I was trying to aim at the boy, and she lunged forward. The shot went wild. I didn't mean to hit her. That's not, I know what people said. I know what your mom believes. Bob reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed and fragile. This is the police report. Read it. I unfolded it with shaking hands. The report was dated August 15th, 1987. It described Bob's account: attempted abduction, discharged firearm in defense of a minor, accidental injury to bystander, victim child recovered safely and returned to family. No charges filed. The little girl's name was Emma Holloway, Bob said. She's 30 now, lives in Cheyenne. You can call her if you want. She'll tell you I saved her life. I felt the floor drop out from under me. But my mom, your mom, was Rachel's friend. She believed what Rachel told her, and Rachel, Bob sighed. Rachel was drunk that night. She didn't see the little girl. She only saw me pointing a gun at a boy she knew from Laramie. She thought I was the bad guy. Then why didn't you tell people the truth? I tried. Bob's voice was bitter. But I'm the crazy Vietnam vet who lives in a trailer and digs through trash. Who's gonna believe me over a pretty girl with a bullet wound? I stumbled home at 3 a.m., the police report clutched in my hand. My mom was back from her shift, smoking on the porch. I showed her the report. I told her everything. She read it twice. Then she looked at me, and I saw something break in her face. Rachel told me Rachel was wrong. But she saw what she wanted to see. I was crying now, angry and confused and exhausted. You made me hate him, Mom. You made me think he was a monster. I almost killed him tonight. My mom didn't say anything for a long time. Then quietly, I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to admit you were wrong. She stood up and went inside. We never talked about it again. 20 years later, I left Medicine Bow a year after that night, went to college in Colorado, got a job, built a life far away from that dusty town and its ghosts. I haven't been back in 20 years. My mom and I exchanged Christmas cards, nothing more. I heard Bob Barnes died in 2019, heart attack alone in his trailer. They found him 3 days later. I think about him sometimes, about the man everyone called a monster, who saved a little girl and spent the rest of his life paying for it. About how easy it is to believe a lie when it fits the story you want to tell. I think about how close I came to burning an innocent man alive. And I think about the real monsters, the ones we create with our fear, our rage, and our refusal to ask questions. Sometimes, the monsters we fear are the ones we misunderstand the most. And sometimes, heroism wears the face of a villain we're too blind to see. Story 2. The cornfield that shouldn't exist. Have you ever seen something so horrifying that your brain immediately tries to reject it? Not a dream, not a hallucination, something real that happened in broad daylight, with witnesses all around you, and yet somehow nobody believes you. That's what happened to me on a road trip through Iowa in 2002. I watched a man throw a child down a well. I called 911. I gave a statement to the sheriff, and then everyone told me it never happened. But I know what I saw. The road to nowhere. It was late June, that thick part of summer, when the air feels like warm honey and the highways shimmer with heat mirages. My boyfriend Jake and I were driving from Chicago to Vermilion, South Dakota, 9-hour slog through some of the flattest, most monotonous landscape in America. Jake's parents had just moved there for his dad's job, and this was our first visit. Iowa stretched on forever. County Road 52 cut a straight line through an ocean of corn-green stalks as far as you could see, standing at attention under a cloudless sky. We'd been driving for 5 hours, barely speaking, just listening to a mix CD on repeat and watching the mile markers crawl by. I was half asleep in the passenger seat when Jake suddenly said, "Huh." I opened my eyes. What? Look at that. The corn had stopped. Not gradually, there was no transition, no thinning out. One moment we were surrounded by endless rows of healthy chest-high corn, and the next we were passing through a landscape that looked like it had been carpet-bombed. Blackened earth stretched in every direction. The corn wasn't just dead, it was carbonized. Charred stalks jutted from the ground like broken bones. Ash drifted across the road in lazy spirals. The smell hit us even through the closed windows. Acrid, chemical, like burnt plastic mixed with vegetation. "Jesus," I whispered. Jake shrugged, keeping his eyes on the road. "Farmers burn fields sometimes. Pest control or something. All of it." "I don't know, babe. Maybe." But even as he said it, I could tell he was uneasy. This wasn't a controlled burn. This was devastation, miles and miles of it, perfectly uniform, as if someone had taken a blowtorch to the entire county, and it was completely silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just the hum of our engine and the crunch of our tires on the asphalt. I saw them about half a mile ahead, shimmering in the heat haze. 2 figures walking through the ash field. One tall, one small. From a distance, they looked almost picturesque, like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting. An old farmer teaching his grandson about the land, maybe. A wholesome rural moment. "Someone's out there," I said. I smiled, despite the eerie landscape. At least, there was life out here. The man and child stopped walking. They were standing near something, a structure of some kind, barely visible through the ash haze. As we closed the distance, I realized it was an old well. Stone walls waist high, with a wooden crossbeam and a bucket hanging from a rope. Who builds a well in the middle of a cornfield? The man bent down, said something to the child. The child looked up at him. I could see the small face turning pale and round. Then the man straightened, gripped the child under the arms, and lifted Jake. The man held the child over the well. Jake seemed, then he let go. I screamed. It wasn't a gasp or a yelp, it was a full-throated, primal scream that filled the entire car. Jake jerked the wheel, and we swerved slightly before he corrected. "What the hell?" he shouted. He threw him in. The man threw the kid in the well. "What man, what are you?" "Stop the car." But Jake didn't stop. We were already past them. The figures were behind us now, disappearing into the blackened field. I twisted in my seat, staring out the back window, but the ash and heat haze made everything blur together. "Jake, you have to turn around." I didn't see anyone throw anyone. I saw it. I watched him drop that kid into the well. "We have to go back." Jake's face was pale. "Babe, I was watching the road. I didn't see." "Turn around." He pulled over onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires. We sat there for a moment, both breathing hard. I fumbled for my phone, a chunky Nokia with a grainy screen, and checked for signal. Nothing. No bars. "We have to find help," I said. My voice was shaking. "We have to call the police." Jake looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but he also looked scared. Not of what I'd seen of me, of the possibility that I was right. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, we'll find a town." He put the car back in drive, and we continued down County Road 52, leaving the burned field behind. Albert Kitchen. The next town was called Ruthven, population 737, according to the faded sign. It was one of those prairie towns that felt frozen in 1952. A grain elevator, a post office, a gas station, and a diner called Albert Kitchen, with a hand-painted sign and gingham curtains in the windows. Jake pulled into the gravel parking lot. I was already out of the car before he turned off the engine. Inside, the diner was nearly empty, just a waitress behind the counter, an old man in a booth reading a newspaper, and two farmers in dusty overalls nursing coffee at a corner table. They all turned to look at us as I burst through the door. "I need a phone," I said. My voice was too loud, too frantic. "I need to call 911. The waitress, a woman in her 50s, with tired eyes and a blonde ponytail, set down her coffee pot. "Phone's on the wall, honey. You okay?" I didn't answer. I went straight to the payphone, mounted near the restrooms, picked up the receiver, and dialed. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. 911. "What's your emergency?" "I just saw a man throw a child into a well." The words tumbled out in a rush. We were driving on County Road 52, maybe 10 miles west of here, and there was this burned cornfield, and there was an old man and a little boy, and he picked him up and dropped him into a well. I think he killed him." There was a pause. "Ma'am, can you describe the location more specifically?" "I don't know. We were just driving through, and the corn was all burned, and there was this old stone. Well, was anyone else with you?" "My boyfriend, but he didn't see it. He was driving." Another pause, longer this time. "And you're calling from Ruthven?" "Yes, Albert Kitchen, the diner." "Okay, stay there. I'm dispatching units to your location and to the area you described. Can you stay on the line?" Yes, please, hurry." I stood there, gripping the phone, aware that everyone in the diner was staring at me. The waitress had moved closer, her face concerned. Jake stood near the door, looking miserable. It felt like hours, but it was probably only 10 minutes before I heard sirens. Sheriff Tom Gunderson looked exactly like you'd expect a rural Iowa sheriff to look. Mid-50s, thick mustache, Stetson hat, and a belly that pressed against his duty belt. He walked into Albert Kitchen, followed by two deputies, and the diner went silent. "You, the one who called about a child in a well?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, we were driving on County Road 52. "Show me on the map." He unfolded a county map on one of the tables, and I traced the route with my finger. We were here, I think. There was a burned cornfield, huge miles of it, and there was an old man and a little boy walking through it. The man threw the boy into a well. Gunderson exchanged a glance with one of his deputies. "A burned cornfield. Yes, ma'am. There haven't been any field fires reported in this county all summer." I blinked. "What? No. It was massive. You couldn't miss it. Everything was black. And you say you saw a man throw a child into a well?" "Yes." "Did you stop? Did you get out of the car?" "No, we kept driving. I didn't have cell service, so we came here to call. So you didn't actually check the well, you know, but... And your boyfriend didn't see it happen." Jake stepped forward. "I was watching the road, Sheriff, but she was really upset. I've never seen her like that." Gunderson nodded slowly. "I'm sure she was. Heat does funny things to people, especially on long drives. Optical illusions, fatigue." "It wasn't an illusion," I said. My voice was rising. "I know what I saw." The door opened. A man walked in, tall, maybe 60, wearing faded dungarees and a John Deere cap. His face was weathered and sunburned, and his eyes were sharp and hard. Behind him was a little boy. My heart stopped. "You're the one who saw my grandson," the man said. His voice was rough, accusatory. I stared at the boy. He was small, maybe 7, with dark hair, cut short, and a grass-stained t-shirt. He looked nervous, clinging to the man's hand. I don't." "This is Roy Patterson," Gunderson said. "Lives about 2 miles from where you say you saw this incident. And this is his grandson, Tyler." Roy Patterson's jaw was tight. "You telling people I threw my grandson down a well?" "The boy I saw was blonde," I said. My voice was shaking. He had light hair, curly. "This isn't the same child. There's no other children out that way," Patterson said. "Just Tyler, and we haven't been near any wells today. We've been at the house all morning." I looked at Tyler. He stared back at me with wide, dark eyes. He didn't say anything. "Mr. Patterson," I said, "where's your cornfield?" "What cornfield?" "The burned one. The one that's completely destroyed." Patterson and Gunderson exchanged another look. "Ma'am," Gunderson said gently, "there's no burned cornfield on County Road 52. We'd know about it. That's impossible. It was right there." "I'll tell you what," Gunderson said. "We'll drive out there right now and take a look. You can show us exactly where you saw this." "Fair enough," I nodded, though my hands were trembling. The empty field. We caravanned back to the spot, Jake and me in our car, Gunderson and his deputies in the cruiser, Patterson and Tyler in a pickup truck. I guided them based on memory, the mile marker, the curve in the road, the place where the corn had abruptly turned to ash. Except when we got there, the corn was fine, green, healthy, waving gently in the breeze. "No," I whispered. Gunderson got out of his cruiser and walked to the edge of the field. He bent down, ran his hand over the stalks. "Corn looks good. No sign of fire damage. This isn't the right place." "Ma'am, you said mile marker 52, just past the big oak tree. This is it." I got out of the car and walked into the field. The corn was warm from the sun, rustling softly. There was no ash, no burnt smell, no well. "I don't understand," I said. Tears were prickling at my eyes. It was here. All of this was black. There were no stalks left. "Trick of the light," one of the deputies said. "Happens all the time out here. The heat shimmer can make things look—" I didn't imagine a child being thrown into a well. Gunderson sighed. "I believe you think you saw something, but there's no evidence of a crime here. No burned field, no well, no missing child. Mr. Patterson's grandson is safe and sound." I looked at Roy Patterson. He was standing by his truck, arms crossed, glaring at me. Tyler stood beside him, silent. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry. I thought." "You thought I hurt my grandson," Patterson said coldly. "I didn't know it was your grandson. I just saw—" "You saw nothing." Gunderson put a hand on my shoulder. "Best thing you can do is get back on the road. Drink some water. Take a break if you need to. You've had a long drive." We left. What else could we do? Jake didn't speak for the first hour. When he finally did, his voice was quiet. "Do you still think you saw it?" "Yes, even though there's no field." "No, well, no missing kid." "Yes." He didn't push it. But I could feel the distance growing between us. By the time we reached Vermilion, things were strained. We broke up 2 months later, before we left Iowa. I called the state patrol from a rest stop and filed a report. They were polite, but dismissive. "We'll look into it," they said. They never called back. Over the years, I've tried to rationalize it. Heat exhaustion, highway hypnosis, a waking dream. But none of those explanations fit. I wasn't tired. I wasn't dehydrated. And I've never had a hallucination before or since. I've also searched for missing children. Reports from Iowa in 2002. There were a few, but none matched what I saw. None from Ruthven or the surrounding counties. 20 years later, I drove through Iowa again last year. Different route, different season, but I kept thinking about that day, about the burned field that wasn't there when we went back, about the little boy with blonde curls, who Tyler Patterson wasn't, about Roy Patterson's face when he looked at me, not angry, not defensive, satisfied, like he'd won something. I still don't know what I saw. Maybe I never will. But here's what I do know. That field was burned. That well existed, and that child fell. And somewhere in Iowa, on a stretch of County Road 52 that doesn't appear on any map I can find, there's a place where the world slipped just for a moment and showed me something I wasn't supposed to see. Sometimes the world seems safe, calm, and predictable. The sun shines, the corn grows, and sheriffs shake your hand and tell you everything's fine. But sometimes, just sometimes, the curtain pulls back. and you see the darkness that's been there all along, hiding in plain sight. And when that happens, you realize the scariest thing isn't what you saw. It's that nobody else can see it too. Story 3. Arrested in Peru, the holiday from hell. Imagine being on vacation, thousands of miles from home, when suddenly you're dragged from your car at gunpoint, thrown into a cell, and accused of murder. No phone call, no lawyer, no one who speaks your language. That's exactly what happened to me in Peru, and for 6 hours, I genuinely believed I was going to die in that jail cell. The homecoming that wasn't. My dad worked for the British Foreign Office, stationed in Lima in the early 80s. That's where he met my mama, Peruvian woman with family scattered across the country, from Cusco to Arequipa. Growing up in London, Peruvian culture was woven into everything. The food we ate, the music that played in our house, the stories my mom told about her childhood in the mountains. I'd only been to Peru once, when I was 7, too young to remember much beyond the markets and my grandmother's cooking. So at 28, with some savings and 3 weeks off work, I booked a flight to Lima. I wanted to reconnect with my roots, visit relatives I barely knew, and see the country my mom still called home. The first week was magical. Lima's chaos, Cusco's beauty, my aunt's endless hospitality. But then I decided to rent a car and drive to Pacartambo, a tiny town in the Andes where my mom's cousins lived. Everyone warned me, take the bus, don't drive alone, the roads are dangerous. I didn't listen. The back road. It was late afternoon when I left Cusco, following a winding back road through the mountains. The landscape was stunning: green valleys, jagged peaks, clouds so low you could touch them. But the road was rough, barely paved, and I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. My phone had no signal. My GPS had stopped working 20 minutes ago. I was navigating with a hand-drawn map my aunt had sketched on a napkin. That's when I saw the lights, red and blue, flashing in my rear-view mirror. My stomach dropped. The stop. I pulled over onto the narrow shoulder, gravel crunching under my tires. My hands were already shaking. I'd heard stories about corrupt cops in Peru, shakedowns, bribes, tourists disappearing. I told myself to stay calm, be polite, pay whatever they asked. The police car stopped behind me, then another, then a third. 3 cars, 6 officers for a traffic stop. One officer approached my driver's side window, but he didn't walk casually. He moved like he was advancing on a threat, crouched low, hand on his holster. Another officer stayed behind his open car door, and I saw it clearly. He had his gun drawn, aimed at me. Manos fuera de la ventana ahora. Hands out the window. Now. My mind went blank. I'd never had a gun pointed at me before. I'd barely seen a real gun before. My hands shot out the window so fast I almost hit the mirror. No estoy armada. Soy turista. I'm not armed. I'm a tourist. The officer ignored me. He shouted to his partners in rapid Spanish I couldn't follow. More officers emerged from the other cars. One of them circled around to the passenger side. Another stood directly in front of my hood, hand on his weapon. Salga del coche ahora. I fumbled with my seatbelt, my hands useless and clumsy. The door was yanked open, and before I could step out, hands grabbed me rough. Violent hand dragged me onto the gravel. My knee hit a rock. Someone wrenched my arms behind my back, and I felt the cold bite of handcuffs. Por favor, soy británica. No he hecho nada. Please, I'm British. I haven't done anything. One of the officers leaned down, his face inches from mine. Asesino, he hissed. Murderer. My blood turned to ice. They threw me into the back of one of the police cars. No explanation, no Miranda rights. Just shouting accusations I couldn't fully understand, and the crushing weight of complete helplessness. An officer showed me a piece of paper warrant, maybe, or a mugshot. The photo was blurry, printed on cheap paper, but I could make out a face. Dark hair, stubble, similar build. Este eres tú. Is this you? No, I don't know who that is. But even as I said it, I felt the first stab of doubt. The man in the photo, he did look like me. Not identical, but close enough. Same complexion, same hair, same general features. Another officer got in the passenger seat and turned to look at me. His eyes were cold, violador de niñas and child rapist. I thought I was going to vomit. No, you have the wrong person. My name is... He cut me off with a bark of laughter and said something to the driver. They both laughed. We drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Down the mountain into a town I didn't recognize. Low concrete buildings, dusty streets, a central plaza with a church. They pulled up to a squat gray building with bars on the windows. The police station. The jail cell was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Concrete floor, concrete walls, a metal bench, a bucket in the corner that reeked of piss and bleach. Fluorescent lights that buzzed and flickered, making everything look sickly and unreal. They took my wallet, my phone, my watch. I begged to call the British Embassy. They ignored me. ¿Cuánto tiempo voy a estar aquí? How long will I be here? No answer. I sat on the bench and tried to think. This was a mistake. Obviously, a mistake. They'd realize soon, check my ID. See, I wasn't whoever they thought I was. I'd be out in an hour. 2 tops, but an hour passed. Then 2, then 3. Officers walked by my cell, some glanced in with curiosity, others with outright contempt. One spat on the floor near the bars. Another muttered asesino under his breath and made a slicing motion across his throat. I stopped asking questions. I stopped speaking at all. I just sat there, replaying everything in my head. The gun, the handcuffs, the photo, the word violador. And I thought, what if they don't believe me? What if they don't care? What if I die here? The wait time stopped meaning anything. The fluorescent lights never turned off. I couldn't tell if it was night or day. My watch was gone. My phone was gone. I was completely unmoored from reality. At some point, they brought me water in a plastic cup. I drank it in 3 gulps, my hands still shaking. At some point, an officer came to the bars and asked me questions in Spanish, too fast for me to follow. I answered in broken Spanish and English, trying to explain British passport, tourist visa. Staying with family in Pocotambo, he wrote nothing down. He just stared at me, expressionless, and walked away. I thought about my mom. She'd be waiting for my Callide promise to check in when I reached Pocotambo. By now, she'd be worried. But she had no idea where I was. No one did. I thought about the man in the photo, the one they thought I was. If he was a murderer, a rapist, what would happen to me? Would they even bother checking, or would I just disappear? I'd read stories about people vanishing in South American jails, mistaken identity, corrupt systems, families searching for years. I curled up on the bench and closed my eyes, trying to make myself as small as possible. The sound of the cell door unlocking jolted me awake. I didn't even realize I'd fallen asleep. An officer stood there, not one I'd seen before. Older, with graying hair and a tired face. Then, he said, "Come." I stood, my legs stiff and aching. ¿Qué está pasando? What's happening? Hubo un error. There was a mistake. I followed him down a narrow hallway to a small office. My belongings were on the desk: wallet, phone, watch. Another officer handed me a form written entirely in Spanish and gestured for me to sign it. What is esta liberación, release? But why was I arrested? Who did you think I was? The older officer sighed, opened a folder, and showed me another copy of the photo. Este hombre. And this man. I looked at it again, properly this time. The resemblance was uncanny. Same hair, same jawline, same build. But it wasn't me. Up close, you could see the differences. His nose was slightly wider, his eyes darker. A scar on his left cheek. I didn't have. He's wanted for murder and assault of a minor, the officer said in halting English. You look very similar. So you arrested me because I look like him, he shrugged. It was a mistake. You are free to go. That was it. No apology, no explanation of why it took 6 hours. No acknowledgement of the terror, the humiliation, the fact that I'd genuinely believed I was going to die in that cell. Just, you are free to go. I drove straight back to Cusco. I didn't go to Cotumbo. I didn't visit my mom's cousins. I just wanted to be somewhere with people, with lights, with witnesses. The rest of the trip was fine grade even, but I couldn't shake it. Every time I saw police, my heart rate spiked. Every time I drove, I checked my mirrors obsessively, and I kept thinking about that photo, the man I'd been mistaken for. How easily it could have gone differently. How easily I could have been left in that cell, forgotten, while they searched for the real criminal. I never told my mom the full story. I said there was a misunderstanding with police, that everything got sorted out. She didn't need to know how close I came to disappearing, but I learned something that day. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or how innocent you are. In the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong face, you can become someone else's nightmare. Travel opens your mind to new cultures, new landscapes, new possibilities, but it also exposes your vulnerability in ways you never imagine. Sometimes, paradise is just one mistaken identity away from becoming hell. And all it takes is looking like the wrong person. Story 4. The bloodiest Sunday in Windsor. Sometimes the quietest towns hide the darkest secrets. Windsor, North Carolina, population 1,900, was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where you left your doors unlocked, where the biggest crime was usually shoplifting candy bars. I'd worked as a deputy there for 3 years and never drawn my weapon once. Until that Sunday in 1993, when I responded to the worst mass murder in our county's history.
The call, it was late afternoon, that dead zone between lunch and dinner when nothing ever happens. I was at the Bertie County Sheriff's Office, about a mile south of Windsor, finishing paperwork and nursing my 3rd cup of burnt coffee. Sunday shift, the quietest day of the week. Then the radio crackled.
All units. Code 10271. Shots fired. B-Low Grocery Store. North King Street. Multiple casualties. Suspect still at large. I looked up. Deputy Harris was already moving, grabbing his keys. Another deputy, Rodriguez, was sprinting toward the door. Wait, did they say multiple casualties? Move, Harris shouted. We piled into our cruisers, sirens screaming, racing north through empty streets. My hands were shaking on the wheel. In 3 years, I'd responded to domestics. Drunk drivers, one stabbing, never a shooting, never multiple casualties. The B-Low was where everyone shopped, the only real grocery store in town. Sunday afternoons, it was full of families, stocking up for the week. Kids, elderly folks, the cleaning crew, closing up shop. As we pulled into the parking lot, I saw it. A dark trail smeared across the pavement, leading from the front entrance toward the street. Blood. The store was chaos. Shoppers had fled, some were still in the parking lot, crying, hugging each other. An ambulance was already there, paramedics working on someone on the ground. I couldn't see who. Sheriff Thompson met us at the entrance, his face gray. 3 dead inside, 2 critical, 1 uninjured. She's the one who called 911. Gunman's gone, when maybe 10 minutes ago. White sedan, Maryland plates, that's all we got. I followed him inside, and the smell hit me. First metallic, coppery, overwhelming. The floors were slick with blood. Cleaning supplies were scattered everywhere. Buckets overturned. Bottles of wax spilled across the tiles, ... and the bodies. 2 were in the main aisle, crumpled together. The 3rd was near the back office. I'd never seen that much blood outside of a car accident. This wasn't an accident. Harris found the survivor, a young woman, maybe 20, sitting against the dairy cooler with a blanket around her shoulders. She was shaking so badly she could barely hold the water bottle a paramedic had given her. Her name was Lisa. She'd been part of the cleaning crew. "Can you tell us what happened?" Thompson asked gently. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Her voice was barely a whisper. Lisa and her crew, 6 people total, had been finishing up, waxing the floors after closing around 4 p.m. A man walked in. She said he looked normal at first, jeans, a dark jacket, clean cut, but he was carrying a gun. "He told us to stay calm," she said. "He said he just needed money, and if we cooperated, nobody would get hurt." He forced the clerk to open the back office safe. Got maybe $2,000–3,000. Standard robbery. It should have ended there, but then he made them lie down. "He told us to stack on top of each other," Lisa said, her voice breaking. Like we were supposed to pile up. He said it would be faster that way." Faster for what? The crew obeyed, terrified, crying but obedient. Lisa's brother Miguel lay on top of her. 2 others lay across them. The manager was at the bottom. "He stood over us," Lisa whispered, and he said, "God, forgive me for what I'm about to do." Then he started shooting. 2 shots, maybe 3. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Lisa felt Miguel jerk on top of her, felt the warm splash of blood. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. She just lay there, waiting to die. But the gunman stopped firing. She heard footsteps, running toward the front of the store. She thought he was leaving. Then he came back. "He had a knife," Lisa said. She was sobbing now, barely able to get the words out. "He started stabbing, over and over. Miguel, my brother, he was trying to protect me, and the man, just he, cut his throat, ear to ear." She demonstrated with a shaking hand across her own neck. "I don't know why I didn't move. I couldn't. I was frozen, and then he was gone." She'd waited in the pile of bodies, some dead, some dying for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. When she was sure the gunman was gone, she crawled out, slipping on blood, and found a phone in the office. "I called 911, she said. "That's all I could do. We had almost nothing. No security cameras below, was too small, too cheap." The sketch artist worked with Lisa for hours, but her description was vague. White male, maybe 30s, average height, dark hair. Could have been 1,000 people. The white sedan with Maryland plates, spotted heading north on Highway 17, but it vanished before we could set up roadblocks. By the time state troopers were mobilized, he was in the wind. 3 dead, the manager, Miguel, Lisa's brother, and another cleaner. 2 in critical condition at the hospital in Greenville. 1 eventually survived. The other died a week later. 4 dead total. Lisa was the only one completely unharmed. Physically, anyway. Sheriff Thompson took it personally. The manager had been his wife's cousin. The whole department worked around the clock. We interviewed everyone in Windsor, put up flyers across 3 counties, contacted Maryland authorities. Nothing. Weeks turned into months. The case went cold. The FBI came in, took over for a while, then quietly left when the leads dried up. The sketch went on America's Most Wanted, generated hundreds of tips, all dead ends. Whoever he was, he'd disappeared. Windsor was never the same. People started locking their doors. The B-Lo closed permanently. Nobody wanted to shop there after what happened. It sat empty for years, boarded up, until they finally tore it down. Lisa moved away. I heard she went to therapy for years, that she couldn't be in grocery stores anymore without having panic attacks. Miguel's funeral had over 500 people, half the town. I left the sheriff's office 2 years later, not because of that day specifically, but it was part of it. You can't unsee something like that. You can't forget the smell, the sounds, the feeling of complete helplessness. I still think about it, about how a normal Sunday paperwork, coffee, quiet can turn into hell in the space of a phone call, about how evil doesn't announce itself. It just walks in, calm and polite, and asks you to lie down. Some days, evil walks out of the shadows and into your life. It doesn't care if you're in a big city or a sleepy town of 1,900 people. It doesn't care if it's a Sunday afternoon or if you're just trying to finish your shift. That day in Windsor taught me something. Violence is always closer than you think, and the people who survive it never really leave that grocery store. They're still lying in the blood, waiting for the footsteps to come back. Story 5. The Cabin in the Woods. Some vacations are meant to clear your head. Some trips are meant to reconnect with nature. But the weekend my friends and I spent in that Appalachian cabin didn't give us peace, it gave us something to run from. And I'm not entirely sure we got away. Fall 2015. 4 of Usme, Sam, Jordan, and Casey decided we needed a break from city life. No bars, no Netflix, no constant buzzing of notifications. Just wilderness, silence, and a cabin rental we found online for $200 a night. The listing showed a rustic A-frame tucked into the mountains of western North Carolina, about 3 hours from Charlotte. Secluded, the description promised. No cell service. Perfect for disconnecting. The reviews were sparse but positive. One person wrote, "Beautiful, isolated, left early." We should have paid attention to that last part. We arrived Friday evening, just as the sun was dropping behind the ridgeline. The cabin was exactly as advertised: weathered wood, a stone chimney, windows with thick curtains, charming in daylight. But as shadows pooled in the corners and the forest pressed in from all sides, it felt smaller than it looked in the photos. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles down a dirt road we could barely navigate. No streetlights, no sounds except wind and leaves. "This is perfect," Casey said, dropping her bag on the couch. Sam grinned. "We're gonna sleep like the dead out here." We got a fire going, cracked open some beers, and settled into the kind of easy conversation you only have when you're far from everything else. Jordan told terrible jokes. Casey talked about quitting her job. Sam kept checking his phone, even though there was no signal. Around 10 p.m., we heard the knock. Soft, deliberate. 3 taps on the window facing the woods. We all stopped talking. "Dear," Jordan said. "Dear, don't knock," I said. Sam got up and pulled back the curtain. Nothing but darkness and trees, probably a branch. But there was no wind. The knocking came again an hour later. Different window, same rhythm, 3 taps, then silence. "Okay, this is creepy," Casey said. "It's the woods," Sam said. "Things make noise, relax." But I noticed he didn't open the curtain this time. By midnight, the unease had settled into our bones. The fire had burned low, and the cabin felt colder than it should. Sam stood up, stretched, and said he was going to the bathroom. "Don't take too long," Jordan joked. "We're not coming to look for you." Sam disappeared down the narrow hallway. We heard the bathroom door close, then nothing. 5 minutes passed, then 10. "Sam," I called. No answer. Casey frowned. "Is he messing with us?" Then we heard it, a scream. Raw, desperate, the kind of sound that doesn't come from a prank. We ran. The bathroom was empty. The small window above the toilet, barely big enough for a child, was open. Cold air rushed in. The curtain flapped in the breeze. "What the hell?" Jordan whispered. I leaned out the window. The ground below was maybe 8 feet down, soft dirt and pine needles. And there, clear in the damp earth, were footprints, bare feet, leading into the woods. "Sam doesn't have shoes on," Casey said, her voice shaking. We grabbed flashlights and ran outside, shouting his name. The fog had rolled in while we weren't paying attention, thick low-lying swallowing our voices. Trees loomed like shadows within shadows. Sam, Sam, then, faintly, from somewhere deep in the woods. Help me. The clearing. We followed his voice, stumbling over roots and rocks, our flashlights cutting weak beams through the fog. The forest felt wrong to quiet, too still, like it was holding its breath. After what felt like miles, but was probably only a few hundred yards, we broke into a small clearing. Sam was there, sitting on the ground, his back to us. He wasn't moving, Sam. I said carefully. He didn't turn around. He just raised one shaking hand and pointed behind us. I turned slowly, my flashlight sweeping across the tree line, and I saw them. Figures, tall to tall standing, just inside the shadows. Their limbs were wrong, elongated and bent at angles that shouldn't exist. Their heads tilted at impossible degrees. They didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, watching. "Run," Sam whispered. We ran. The sounds started before we were halfway back, footsteps that weren't ours. Branches snapping in rhythm with our panic, something moving parallel to us through the trees. Fast, impossibly fast. We burst through the cabin door and slammed it shut, throwing the deadbolt. Jordan shoved a chair under the handle. Casey pulled all the curtains closed. Sam sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, rocking slightly. His feet were filthy and cut, but he didn't seem to notice. "What happened?" I asked. "How did you get outside?" He didn't answer. He just stared at the wall, his lips moving soundlessly. That's when the scratching started. Slow, deliberate, dragging down the side of the cabin. Like nails on wood, but deeper, heavier. "Jesus Christ," Jordan breathed. The scratching circled the cabin back wall, side wall, front door, testing, searching. We sat in silence, barely breathing, listening to whatever was outside move around us. It went on for hours. Sometimes it stopped. Sometimes it started again. None of us slept. The morning after, when dawn finally broke, the scratching stopped. The cabin was silent, except for our ragged breathing. Jordan was the first to move. He pulled back a curtain slowly, peeking outside. "They're gone," he said. We opened the door carefully. Daylight had transformed the forest back into something almost normal green. Bright, harmless, but the marks were there. Deep gouges in the wood siding, running vertically down from the windows. 4 parallel lines, like claw marks. Too high to be from any animal I knew. Sam finally spoke. His voice was hoarse. "We need to leave now." We didn't argue. We threw our stuff in the car and drove down that dirt road faster than we should have. I kept checking the rearview mirror, convinced I'd see something following us. I never did, but I felt it, years later. Sam never talked about what happened in those woods. Not that night, not ever. He moved to Arizona a year later, somewhere flat, somewhere with no trees. Jordan and Casey act like it was just a weird camping trip. "We spooked ourselves," Casey says when it comes up. "Too much imagination, too much isolation. But I know what I saw, and I know what left those marks. Sometimes, late at night when the wind picks up, I hear it, that same deliberate scratching, just outside my window. I tell myself it's branches. I tell myself it's nothing. But I always check the locks twice. Not every vacation ends with photos and souvenirs. Some leave you with scars you can't see and memories you can't shake. And the Appalachian woods, they keep their secrets well. But sometimes those secrets follow you home."